Hello everyone, hope you're having an excellent day today. I'm doing pretty good. In this video, we're going to be starting another timed build challenge. However, instead of our usual 12 hours, we're going to be upping the stakes a bit and going for a 24-hour build time. Let's see how that works out. Now, don't get me wrong, I've thoroughly enjoyed building these 12-hour build challenges for the past couple weeks. I think it's a very fun video format. It also results in a pretty great creation most of the time. However, there's been a couple instances where I've really wished I had just a few more hours in order to work and finish up that build to perfection. And I think that giving myself just a little bit more time will result in possibly some really excellent builds. That being said, I want to make sure this is something that people wanted to see, and the poll suggesting this possibility was overwhelming. So hopefully you guys tune in and enjoy this video. Speaking of polls, we also wanted to make sure this theme was going to be an interesting one to watch. And castle was the obvious choice. We've touched on the castle theme a couple of times throughout the 12-hour build challenge series. However, we haven't done an actual fully fledged stone castle. That's kind of the cornerstone of a lot of LEGO sets in that theme. There were a couple castle factions polled on which would be inside the castle or featured in this mock, and Wolfpack absolutely dominated the poll. I was really surprised. I thought that Black Falcons would possibly put up a bigger fight, but Wolfpack it is. I think that might have something to do with the recent Wolfpack minifigures we've gotten, kind of revival of that theme. I think that this faction will be a very timely use right now. So I'm excited to build my first Wolfpack castle, actually. Let's go ahead and sketch it out as usual. I might take a few more minutes to do it this time though. In all of the previous builds in this series, I've definitely gone in with at least some sort of vague idea of what I want to accomplish in the time that we have. And this video is going to be no different. We have the set number 6075, the Wolfpack Tower. This is the only Wolfpack set that I own, and I think it's a great one. This is a fantastic little castle set. Because I like this set, because this is the one that I own, I feel like this is the first time I'm really going to try to remake, or at least take heavy inspiration from an existing LEGO set. I think this would be a nice, smaller castle, something that's accomplishable in 24 hours. It is a lot of time, but it's a lot less time than I would normally spend on a serious castle mock. So I think this is going to work well for kind of a base inspiration. Obviously, it will be quite different and many, many times larger than this, but this is a good starting point, a good concept. A nice fortified little fortress for the Wolfpack to hide out in. So I'm going to set that over to the side and let that inspire our creation here. So this is significantly larger than the one that we're going off of the old set. It's got several towers, one of which is the tallest here with a kind of pointed or conical roof. We've got a couple of smaller towers over here, which is going to be forward facing to where the main view will be. These towers are not going to be as big or tall, but they'll kind of add layers and texture to the overall composition. We've got sort of a keep happening back here. This will be kind of a square, more basic building, but it'll have more room inside. I'd love to get at least some basic interiors accomplished in this castle. We don't have to, but that would be definitely a stretch goal. The landscape outside will actually be on a big oval of snot bricks, transparent light blue bricks on their sides in a big oval shape. And that will be the river or the water that this is supposed to be put on. That doesn't even necessarily need to be attached, just needs to be the correct size and have a nice detailed and not too jagged edge on the front here. Probably a lot of tiles, and hopefully I can scrounge up some trans light blue or clear cheese slopes to help round out those bricks. The castle colors are going to be a little different from what I normally do. The set features black with light gray accents. I'm not going to use black because most of my useful black bricks are in Tron. That would be a bad decision to build with a color that I'm really lacking in pieces. Instead, I'm going to go with a dark gray core to the castle with light gray highlights, such as tiles for the corners of the towers and around the windows can be all light gray. And then I'm thinking red roofs, just to kind of go with the Wolfpack vibe, a little bit of a flag. I only have like a couple Wolfpack shields. I think I have like maybe 2 or 3. So one of them will probably be on the gate and hopefully another couple for the handful of guards that'll be inside this thing. Maybe a dozen figures needed total. A good castle only needs a dozen guys to defend it. A couple pine trees in the back and a little back exit. The main idea would be you're approaching from the front and it's just surrounded by water. So good luck trying to get across that. It's a river. I think this will be a really fun build. It should be pretty large. Larger than any build we've done so far. We've got a couple days to work on this. Like LEGO Masters, I'm going to spread the time out over a couple days instead of trying to build 24 hours straight. Really trying to maximize the amount of time that we're building so that I'm focused and energetic for the entire build time, not just the beginning. But yeah, I think this is plenty to go off of. We have a very clear idea. We have some big goals. We're gonna have to try and break this up into manageable chunks and make it happen. Let's do it. It's a little after 11 right now, so we'll start our time now. I'll take an hour lunch break today and work for about 6 hours total and hopefully do that over the next 3 days. So let's see how it works out. Okay, first update. We are a couple hours into building, just over 2, I believe now, and we've got quite a big chunk of terrain starting to form here for the main castle area. I decided to go with dark tan for the rocks. I think it'll be a great color contrast with light gray and dark gray castle. You really can't beat this color, it's so great. I think these rocks here on this side are particularly nice. We've got a lot of snot rocks going on there, studs on top. And over here it's a little more simple, but this is where the bridge is supposed to embed into the side of the castle. So this is a little bit more underneath background elements, so dissipating as we reach the larger tower over here on the left. This is already a little bit bigger of a footprint than the Forester scene, which was our largest footprint size for a 12-hour build, so this is already bigger, but we've got a bridge going off on this side and maybe a little more landscape going out on that direction. So this is going to be a sizable creation once it's done. I'm paying extra attention to where the foundations of each tower are going to go. They are going to be all in the same grid. There's no angular sections going on in this castle, but I think this will keep it a lot stronger. I think it just makes sense for the shape of this terrain that it's put on. I'm going to need a lot of filler brick to kind of fill in this huge base. It should be quite a heavy build once it's done. And I want to have this bridge be removable too. So a couple of things still to work on. Going to be breaking out some more filler brick to fill in this inside, and a little bit of dark gray start tracing out where the walls should be. The goal for today really is to finish as much of the landscape as we can, including the bridge. If we could get this all filled out in the next 4 hours and a little bit on the bridge, I will consider this a good first day of building. If we don't get quite to that goal, it's not the end of the world, but it means we have a little less time to work on the castle, the interior details, that sort of thing. We'll see. I think if we can get close to finishing the landscape, we'll be in really good shape for the next 3 days of building. But let's go ahead and keep working on it, shall we? All right, update number 2. We've built for about 4 hours total today, and it's about 4:30. So I can guess there was a nice long lunch break in there. But we've got a really sizable chunk of landscape starting to materialize here. This outer shell of dark tan, still looking good. We've got a ton of filler brick in the middle here, building up to that pretty high point of these rocks out here. And we've got a bit of dark gray starting to form around the outside edge of the castle. So yeah, it's starting to look like a big castle build. I'm really liking it. We've got this dark tan path or road leading to the back door, the back gate. This back gate won't be nearly as noticeable as the main perspective, which is the other side with all those fancy rocks. But I want to make sure this castle is really 360. A lot of our 12-hour builds, we've definitely had very plain looking backside of the mock. And in this case, I want it to just look nice, normal. Nothing out of place or too plain back here so that it can be put in a nice table, or I think this mock might be kept for display a little bit longer than some of these 12-hour builds. We'll see. I'm enjoying the dark gray and light gray color scheme of the castle walls already. I think that with a little bit of black and white Tudor and some red rooftops should really kind of tie this whole thing together. But like I said, we got about 2 hours left. I feel like we're doing pretty good on time. If we can pretty much like fill in this landscape, get it to about the same height as these rocks, we don't have to go too much higher, and start to work on a bridge out here, I think we'll be doing really good. The more strategic castle designer would hesitate to build a bridge directly into the castle, but that's what the original set has, and that's also kind of what our sketch is as well. Part of me wants to just throw in a drawbridge or a wooden burnable bridge so that you could really isolate this castle, make yourself safe from a siege. But I don't think we're going to overthink it. We're just going to make a basic bridge that'll be a lot easier to make than either of those other options. So simple bridge leading out to a small chunk of landscape and a little ramp going down, similar to what we saw on the other side. This is a castle guarding a river that is flowing between this kind of rocky area, and it makes a perfect spot for a little guarded bridge. So next steps, try and fill in this left side of the mock a little bit to match and have be nice flat foundations for the rest of the castle to go on later, and make a bridge. We only got 2 hours left, like I said, so hopefully we can kind of get this done. All right, our 6-hour timer for today has lapsed, which means we are going to stop building for tonight. It is now 6:30. This would normally be about halfway for a 12-hour build. I'm looking forward to a little extra rest tonight. It'll be great. But we have a really sizable piece of the mock built so far. A really solid chunk of foundation. We've got the walls materializing around the back and the towers starting to take shape. We've got the beginnings of a bridge over here. This actually took me longer than I was expecting because I at first tried to use these arches and kind of decorate them like you can see with the brackets there, but I couldn't find quite enough of them. I have 3 here. I'm pretty sure I have another one somewhere, but I just really wasn't finding it. I was looking for like 15 minutes and I'm like, okay, I just need to figure out something else. So building some slightly larger arches means I didn't have to go for a double bridge, just did a single bridge. And I think that'll work pretty well, actually. I like the way it looks. I think it'll make a nice contrast with the dark gray around it. That'll go into a nice little ramp landscape right there, and some water beneath and in between should really solidify this landscape and make it a unified piece. We're gonna wrap it up for tonight. I'm gonna go get some dinner and some rest, and I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Hello everyone. It feels like a brand new day because it is. This is the first update of day 2. We've already been building for a little over an hour and a half, and we've got a really nice bridge starting to flesh out over here. We had the archways done last night, but that's about it. Now we've really added some nice crenellations up here, a nice ramp going to it. Still gonna add some more tiles on this surface here, I think. But this little island of landscape here is a great way to suggest more off that way if you were to build a huge scene for this thing to go in. But yeah, I'm really happy with this bridge. I think it looks perfect. It's really also establishing the level of detail that the whole castle will now have to accomplish. That could be a bit of a challenge because there's a lot of tiles and a lot of unique slope pieces being used here. I think I have enough, but we'll find out, and I might have to improvise here and there. Once this bridge is just a little bit further along, I'm gonna start moving to the other side of the build and try and fill in all these tower areas, get to about this height with the castle. If I can finish the bridge and get to a nice foundational level on the entire area of the castle, that would be a pretty good day. I think I would be pretty happy with that for day 2 of 4. But yeah, already a great amount of success, really happy with the appearance. But also, really had an important update. A little mail package arrived from a few things that I bought on eBay. We've got some of the Wolfpack Beastmaster figures here. These are pretty much brand new. I'm not sure if they're out yet, if they're coming out the first of the year or if they're coming out later. All I know is they are hard to find right now because everyone's trying to get them, and I am way too busy / lazy to go out to my local stores to find them. I also know that I have a bunch of LEGO fans in my area, so they're usually completely wiped out. So paid a little premium for these guys to have them purchased and shipped from eBay, but I'm happy to have just a couple of them. Long term, I might try and acquire a few more before they kind of start phasing them out again. I'd love to have like maybe 6 or 7 total, but 2 for now is plenty to help decorate and enhance the amount of guys we have in our castle. Those new shields in particular will be a huge help. I could put one on the front of the gate and have one of the more notorious figures holding a shield as well. Look at that. Oh, and the wolves are awesome too. Look at that detail on that piece. Super neat. This plus the 20, 30 or so other Wolfpack torsos and figures that I can make should be more than enough figures to completely garrison this castle. So I am excited to get these and be able to include them in the scene. But moving those aside, let's get back to finishing this castle. Hello everyone, we're back with the second update of the second day. And we're looking at the less glamorous, less dramatic progress being achieved on the back of the MOC here. We've got significant wall sections happening. They're a little bit plain right now, but I think a few vines should hopefully break it up just a little bit. And once we get to a certain point, we'll actually be establishing some arrow slits, some shooting areas for people in the middle of the courtyard here, kind of like how we have on our sketch over here. So a couple small arrow slits on the side on the walls. One over here, 2 on the front area here, because that wall section's a little bigger. The bridge, pretty much done. Just need to put some greenery around the front island there. The only really major problem I have here is I want to keep this build modular. And to a certain extent, because if all the castle is going up on this rather large landscape, this will be a really big, solid chunk object to move. So that's what I'm gonna try to do, have a modular system from this point up. This chunk is pretty sturdy, but anything off the top, these towers will break off if I don't have them removable at this point. The other issue I have is this back entrance is a little bit of an odd position where it's kind of a lower area here, higher area here, various stairs happening. I'm thinking a smaller door like this will work the best in there, almost like a little sally port. But yeah, gonna have to figure out that issue there. We also have a couple probably tight doorways happening in here if we have entrances on the bottom for these towers. I think one right here would make sense, and possibly one right here. Might not have to worry about these smaller towers being accessible from the lower story, maybe just a stairway going up so you can access them from the wall. We'll see. It is a little after 4 p.m. now, which means we have less than 2 hours to build today, but that's actually pretty much where we wanted to be at this stage. Second day of 4, we have 2 more days, 2 more 6-hour sessions to build. If I can get this really polished off, have some nice tiles, basically make this modularly accessible, maybe put a few texture tiles in here, establish this door, put some greenery on that island, I'll consider this a successful day. All right, it is now 7:38 on the second day of building. We've passed our 6-hour build limit, so we're not going to work on the mock anymore. However, the area around the studio is getting a bit messy. We've got bins everywhere. We've got that brick on the tables there, and that brick has now kind of become depleted of the pieces I need, such as basic gray bricks and certain tiles and slopes in light gray and some headlight bricks, things like that. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time cleaning up the space around myself so I'm fresh, ready to go tomorrow with a nice clean workspace. I'm not counting this as part of the build, but it does contribute and help me tomorrow, helps my building time tomorrow be a lot more efficient. Hello everyone, day number 3, update number 1. We've got quite a bit of progress on the castle already. It is 12:41, been building for probably about 2 hours now. Got a nice early start today, and we've got a number of elements starting to develop here on the castle. The keep area is forming nicely, so is this larger tower over here. You're probably wondering, how on earth do they get in? There's no doorways. Well, guess what? They have to go up the exposed stairs into this area and through the different areas of the walls in order to get to these rooms and these towers, meaning that it's harder to take each tower in turn. It's strategy. That's what I'm explaining. It's just not that. It has nothing to do with the fact that a door would be hard to put in these small little corners. No, nothing to do with that at all. Really liking the design for the arrow slits, which we've put on a variety of places throughout the castle already. We've got 3 on the walls, and we've got a couple on the towers as well. I think they really tie the whole build together very nicely. The corners of the castle, the central areas now have a little bit of decoration, something to draw your attention away from the very plain gray bricks. Now, I was talking to my brother last night, and he was like saying, why aren't you using, profile bricks, brick bricks in here? And I want a different type of texture than that really fine grain texture happening inside the gray area. I want it to be pretty smooth and pretty, not distracting. I want it to basically disappear. I want you to really be drawn to the larger 1x2 tiles going on all over the castle, and the crenellation should help with that too. So different choice in textural design. Hopefully it works. I think that it will once we get a few vines on and a few other details. It should be really clean, really cool looking. A little less progress over on this side because these towers don't have a modular attachment point yet, but once they do, we'll be able to develop those rather quickly as well. The walls are going up pretty fast. This gate was built last night, but it's still kind of freestanding here. This stairs is also freestanding there, or It won't be exactly attached that way. It'll have to have some modular attachment points beneath it. And I'm thinking of having this gate be kind of buddied up with this small tower. And I'm thinking of having these stairs buddied up with this tower and this gate area up here. So a chunk of castle there, chunk of castle here, the wall section, big tower, and another wall section. But the ultimate goal for today is to get everything basically up to the point of this gate or maybe a little bit higher. And then we'll be ready to finish off the final day tomorrow and really get like the roofs and the crenellations and some grass pieces here and there to kind of final touches for the last day. We have also constructed a nice little Wolfpack garrison here. We've got the Beastmaster, we've got the Wolfpack Knight looking super cool. You've got a couple other knights, foot soldiers, archers, crossbowmen, kind of rounding out the group. How many do I have here? We have nine figures total. I think that'll be completely sufficient to guard this castle. It doesn't need a lot of people. It's not a gigantic castle. It is big, but it's not huge. So this should be a perfectly adequate garrison. Lore-wise, I want to explain what's happening with this castle. This castle is very clean, very organized. It doesn't look dilapidated yet, but once we get pretty much to the tops of the roofs, going to add some vines on the side and make it look just slightly overgrown. Maybe a few broken areas here and there, nothing too crazy. A few holes in the roofs will hopefully give the impression that this is slightly dilapidated, a little bit out of repair. The story goes that this castle was built by either the Dragon Knights or the Lion Knights, and this area ended up not being as strategically important anymore, and it was abandoned. But then the Wolfpack moved in to make a perfect fortress so they could terrorize the local countryside. Might even have a little crane with a little cage out here with a skeleton in it to really sell the idea this is a bad guy fortress now. But we'll see on how many details I need to add to really sell the Wolfpack vibe. All right, time for the final update of day 3. We've got quite a bit of work done since we started today. We've got this wall section pretty much complete right here. This one's getting there as well, just a few tiles I think, and we'll be good to go. Got some access for the archery points here, which is pretty cool. This one, I mean, just pretend there's access to it. I don't think you'll be able to see what's going on behind the stairs that are going to be installed right there. This tower turret on the corner is getting close to completion. I ended up making it just a tiny bit shorter than I was expecting because I figured it'd be easier for them to just walk on the surface and walk into the next area versus trying to create 2 doorways in that small space. So just lowered it just a hair from what I was expecting. It is too small to have any arrow slits of its own, like we had planned in our sketch over here initially, but I think it still conveys the impression what we want. It'll also, its main purpose is to be a compositional accessory to the big tower on the left. So it should work just fine. What's not working just fine is the top of this arch. It's starting to look kind of funky. Trying to make a little bit of a building area here, a little bit of an inverted section with some murder holes is what they're called. And that way you can shoot down on enemies trying to cross the bridge and mess with the door. But that area is proving a little bit tricky. So we're going to have to find some solutions there. But I think that given that we only have about an hour left in building, it's about 5, we have about an hour left till 6. So I think we're going to let future marks deal with that issue. Over here on the left, this tower is starting to shape up very nicely. We're going to have another arrow slit on each corner, I think. So it should have appearance of a 2-story tower. Bridge is looking good. I made some slight changes to the inside areas of these crenellations so that they basically have less light gray sticking out. A little bit more minimized, and I think it makes these guys stand out more. I think it looks good, a little bit more dark gray in there too. I've repeated that process all the way for all these up here too. The only area of the castle that hasn't had a modular layer established is this little turret back here. That's probably what I'm going to do next in this final hour, is try and finish this up and build it up to match this one. Yeah, it should be pretty simple to do that though, so I'm not too worried about that. Gonna also just combine a little tiny wall section and ramp into that whole chunk to hopefully make it make sense. And yeah, it's really starting to look like a castle now. I'm really enjoying the appearance of it. I think once we get to day 4 and finish everything up, it should be looking phenomenal. Hello everyone, day number 4, and we're about a little past an hour into the build so far on the final day, the final stretch, and we've got some progress over here on this back turret. It was basically, I think right about here when we started. We've now finished that off, finished the stairway up. This is all modularly removable. Let's see if I can do it without breaking. Yep. So it comes off very easily, so we're able to hopefully transport this creation. I made a style choice here with the top of the tower turret here. Instead of going out and being more elaborate with the crenellations, I decided to keep it more minimal. I think this is very functional and simple. I like the way it appears. I think that I'm going to end up going for this design just because it looks fine, it works, and it's a lot quicker. I was wondering, where are all these 1x4 arches? I can't seem to find any in the pieces. But then I realized, oh right, Steven's got a big castle over there, and it's got a bunch of those arches in it, like dozens and dozens. So I'm actually unlikely to find a ton of those arches in the bins. So I'm going to not do so many, fancy pieces here and just kind of keep it straight and simple like we did with the walls. We've still got some pretty big unfinished areas on the back over there. However, those went together pretty quickly yesterday, so I'm thinking we can get them up to where they need to be without too much trouble today in the remaining 5-ish hours. This part's still going to be difficult. I'm probably going to tackle that next after a quick lunch break because top of that arch is still looking a little funky. I kind of want to redo it a little bit. And this area here, I was hoping on putting a little kind of building similar to what we have here with a little roof, but we'll see. A little area where you could drop projectiles onto approaching enemies. If we have to do just a normal crenellation wall, we can do that, but I think it would be cool to have a little architectural feature there, so we'll see. Depends on time. Unfortunately, because this is the last day, we have to kind of make those tough choices and maybe sacrifice some of the more grandiose ideas we might have been thinking about, but I'd rather have a really nice, simple, finished castle than an unfinished huge thing. So I think that the amount of work that we've accomplished in the past 4 days is very substantial. So we should, balance out what we can do in the last remaining hours. All right, second update of day 4. We've made a tremendous amount of progress, pretty much where I expected to be at this point. It is about 5:30. We've got technically about an hour and a half left to build. Had a little bit of a long lunch break, late start. But yeah, we've got a big castle in front of us here. Some towers shaping up nicely. Got some areas for some roofs starting to form here. Actually kind of a double roof going on there. And got some murder holes. I like the way this arch looks compared to its predecessor. It's still not perfect. I can still mess with it a little bit, we'll see. But more importantly, these turrets over here are both complete. The walls are complete, doorways installed. Lots of stuff happening on the inside. There's a tile I missed, need to get that. But yeah, just barely had enough ingots. Those 1x2 tile modified, just barely had enough of those for the whole scene. There's probably 1,000 or more in this whole assembly. I'm pretty happy with the scale of this thing. It's big. I'm pretty happy with the color scheme and the texture of the walls. Do want to add some more details that make it more Wolfpack. So a little bit of ramshackle roof, some vines. I want a little cage with a skeleton maybe hanging off over here. I want to suggest that the owner of this castle is a pretty shady guy, someone you don't want to mess with or run into. But yeah, we are running short on time, have a lot still left to do. I'm going to do the roofs first and then see if I can kind of fix this area one last time. All right, the timer has elapsed. All 24 hours have passed, and we've got most of a castle. We've got 95% of a castle here. So I think we deserve a pat on the back for that. However, unfortunately, just ran out of time just a little bit, I think. These roofs are okay. I think the color works fine, but some of these details are a little bit too big or too ostentatious. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that roof. I think I would change it up a little bit. And then these battlements here were just kind of a last-ditch effort. In the last few minutes, I was working on something else, but it was getting too big compared to the top of this tower here. This shouldn't be taller than that. It should be the same or underneath that tower. So a little bit of a compositional flip-flop there, because if you look at our sketch, that tower is supposed to be taller than the gate. So unfortunately, didn't quite stick the landing, but I think that most of what we accomplished looks great. So after 4 days of 6 hours a day, 24 hours total, we have this, a technically complete castle. This build has several shortcomings and cut corners, especially as you get to the top, because we were starting to run out of time on the last day. I was also really tired. This project has been quite a mental and physical challenge. But let's describe some of the issues I have with this build before we proceed. First of all, there's no plants. There's also no water base. I was planning on having a reason for there to be a bridge in front of the castle. There needs to be something impassable underneath. There needs to be a lot more tiles on the inside area of the castle. The courtyard area should have lots of pavers versus just exposed plates. The 2 roofed tower areas are too short. I was just trying to cover them over, get them done in the last couple hours. They really probably should be another story tall. The roofs themselves are kind of crummy looking. I think I need to kind of reevaluate the texture and the direction they're going. I think they should actually be rotated 90 degrees and they should be facing the bridge coming up so they're more like the original set. Lots of little things wrong with this build. I'm left with a choice. I could push this build into the bulk bin and say, I tried my best. Or the alternative is to actually follow the commenter's advice, because every time I do a 12-hour build and it doesn't quite get as big or as grand as I want it to be, most of the comments are like, hey, don't worry about the time, just finish the build the way you want it. It'll look so much better if you get it like your sketch, like you wanted, your vision. And I kind of agree. I think that sometimes that build really could have used a few more hours. And in this case, I think it definitely could. So instead of just calling it quits on our self-imposed 24-hour deadline, I'm going to make this a 24-hour plus build and really finish it the way I want to see it. Hello everyone. Well, all that building completed and then some, and we finally have a castle that I think perfectly matches the original idea I had for it and our original sketch. The Wolfpack Keep can be called done. We've added an entire new story to each of the two towers and some nice new roofs that are much more detailed and a lot more thematically correct than the previous ones. We've added a big chunk of transparent blue bricks beneath the castle. It really helps frame the build and kind of contain it very nicely. I think it works perfect. It's also a nice color contrast there. The rocks that we started out with at the beginning looking terrific. The color schemes are really making sense. You get the browns and reds from the figures, bright red roofs, greens from the landscape. I love the little escape boat on this side, as well as the little cage with a black falcon knight unfortunately trapped within it. Looks like he hasn't been fed in a while. It doesn't look so good. Adds a touch of evil and cunning to the build. A little bit of story elements happening back there. The big takeaway from this model is very deliberate use of texture. Specifically the lack of texture in some areas and the abundance and aggressive use of texture in others. Like those roofs are crazy, but I think they actually work well with the other kind of flamboyant elements of the castle. Yeah, I am a really big fan of this build. Obviously, it's a little frustrating and annoying not able to get it all done in that 24 hours. I would estimate there's another 5 hours or so added to the creation in order to make it perfect like I want to see it. But at the same time, I think it was totally worth it. I'm really glad I followed the advice of those who comment on my videos saying, go ahead and take a little extra time and finish it the way you want it, because now this build is really ready for posting on Instagram and bringing to a convention in just a month. As you can see, this build is pretty large. 24 hours gives us a little bit more time, or 24 hours plus, and it's just kind of pushing the boundaries of the maximum of my photo setup here. So I'm gonna have to maybe look into some bigger backgrounds and more lights in future. I really don't know how feasible it is to do this long term, because if I can get a decent build and video done in a couple days versus over a week, it might be better to stick to a smaller scale like the 12-hour build challenge in order to keep creations and videos happening at a much more easier to produce and more frequent scale. But there's no denying the results are pretty fantastic when we really put a ton of effort into a creation like this. If you want to see more 24-hour creations like this one, please like the video, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. The only thing that's going to motivate me to do more like this is statistics. If this video does great, I could see myself doing more. If it does the same as a 12-hour build, well, that answers my question for me. Thank you everyone for following along and watching this video. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.